the bigger the toy, the smarter you better be to use it. So that's worth thinking about, because we're coming up with some pretty damn big toys. And what did my friend Jonathan Pajot said again? He said recently, I told you about him, this deep religious thinker. He's something. He said, we're going to see giants walk the earth again. And you think, well, what does that mean? It's like, well, we're already androids, you know. Already. When you're on Twitter, you're an android. Well, why? Well, you know, there are lots of trolls on Twitter. Sometimes I'm one of them, by the way. But I'm not an anonymous troll. So I take my lumps, let's say. Well, I started calling the trolls troll demons. And I had a reason for that. And the reason is, you know, maybe you're some resentful character who's a coward, and you're Machiavellian and narcissistic and psychopathic and sadistic, because that's actually the hallmarks of anonymous trolls, and that's been studied very well by people who study the so-called dark tetrad of personality traits. I interviewed this guy, Del Paulus, who's the head researcher among the dark, and it's clearly the case that the anonymous denigrating trolls are psychopathic, Machiavellian, narcissistic sadists, and maybe not right to the clinical point, but... And so you think you got this resentful, you know, underground character who's carping away on Twitter, trying to do nothing but cause trouble, who's also anonymous, and he's bitter, and he wants to hurt people, and he likes to hurt people, which is what lulz means, right? I'm doing it for the lulz means I'm doing it because I positively delight in the production of human misery. And you think, if you just met that guy, you wouldn't give him a half a second of your time. In fact, you wouldn't even meet him, because he's cowering in his mother's basement covered with Cheeto dust under the covers, you know, and he's just, there's nothing to him at all except bitterness and spite. But now you multiply him 10 million times and you make him electronic. And that's an android. And that's what happens every time he posts something on Twitter. He's already a human-machine hybrid, and he's a human super intelligent connected machine hybrid. And so that means all his pathology is multiplied immensely by our technological might. And I've thought recently that virtualization enables psychopathy. So in normal social situations, if you're a narcissistic Machiavellian and you push it too hard, someone will absolutely hit you. And that will be the end of it. But online, especially if you're anonymous, that's all stripped away. And so the psychopaths can have free reign. And part of the reason that our culture is being torn apart at the moment is because virtualization enables psychopathy. And so that's a big problem. And so that all pertains to this question of, well, you know, when you have bigger toys, you better be a bigger boy. Thousands of years of alchemical writing. The alchemists were motivated by the idea that there was a substance that was material. And if we could investigate material and discover that substance, we would live forever, we wouldn't be ill, and we could transmute base metals into gold, which would be infinitely wealthy. And Jung's notion was that the promise of matter was what impelled alchemy, and out of that grew science. And science is motivated by the notion that if we study matter deeply enough, we'll prolong life, we'll increase health, and we'll make ourselves wealthy. And of course, that's exactly what happened. And we took this technological route there. Dreamlike mythology emerged science and just blew up and made us into technological giants. How many of you know what ChatGPT is? Okay. So not very many. So I'll tell you what ChatGPT is, just so you know, because you need to know this. And I don't know what sort of technological revolution this is. Gutenberg press level? It's something like that. This is a big deal. So this AI system, it's a general language processing model, was released about a week and a half ago. And I went and interacted with it. It's an AI system, artificial intelligence system. It basically is trained on, well, a massive corpus of spoken or of text. So it's derived its models of the world from the analysis of human speech, essentially. It isn't using real-world data yet, but that will be happening certainly within the next year. So, and ChatGPT analyzes a very large corpus of text, and that corpus is growing all the time. Now, it's already sophisticated enough. I went on to it last week and I said, okay, some of you know I've written these books, 12 Rules for Life, and then Beyond Order, 12 more rules, because, you know, you can't have enough rules. And I asked it, this is what I asked it to do. I said, write me an essay that's a 13th rule for Beyond Order, written in a style that combines the King James Bible with the Tao Te Ching. That's pretty difficult to pull off, you know. Any one of those things is hard. The intersection of all three, that's impossible. Well, it wrote it in about 3 seconds, 4 pages long, and it isn't obvious to me, for better or worse, that I would be able to tell that I didn't write it. Right, and okay, and that's pretty impressive, although, you know, maybe not its relationship to what I've written, but the fact that it could do that grammatically perfectly, right? And quite impressive philosophically. I also had it write an essay on the intersection between the Taoist version of ethical morality and the ethics that are outlined in the Sermon on the Mount, which it just nailed, got that dead right, brilliant. Again, it took it about 3 seconds. There was a computer engineer who purported to work for Tesla. He asked ChatGPT, he said, look, I work for Elon Musk, but I haven't been doing much for the last week, so I need you to write me 10 bullet points about what I probably would have done as a engineer at Twitter. What 10 things did I do last week that were productive and valuable? And oh, if you don't mind, write me the accompanying computer code that goes with each project. And it did that too, 3 seconds, and the computer code works. You think we're powerful now, man. You wait till the AI giant starts to stroll around the earth, and that's coming. Like, you will absolutely see that in your lifetime. You'll probably see it in the next 2 or 3 years, because that technology is moving so quickly that even those who are on top of it can't keep up. So, and I would say we better get our act together, because we could make this world quite the heavenly place, but there's a lot more pathways to hell than there are to heaven. And, you know, by the time World War II hit, we were pretty damn technologically powerful. We could take out a lot of the world in a very short period of time, but that was nothing compared to what we can do now. So we're really at a crossroads. We could have everything we could dream of if we were careful, but we could have a nightmare beyond contemplation if we're not. And so I would say this is all on you, right? Because also, as we become technologically more powerful, every single individual becomes more powerful. And that means the corruption of the individual starts to become more and more a world destabilizing force. Obviously, right? Because look how connected you are. So how could it be otherwise? Right? Because that connection means your power is multiplied. Obviously, that's what it means. And that means your sins are multiplied. Really? Now, we already know people who studied totalitarian states with any degree of depth figured out 40 years ago that a totalitarian state can only thrive if every single person in the state lies. Solzhenitsyn claimed was one man who stops lying can bring down a tyranny, which he did, by the way. Now, not alone, you know, Reagan had something to do with that, so did the Pope at that time, and there are a variety of other people as well, but they were the 3 cardinal individuals. And so, you know, you look out there in the world and you see the giants marching towards you and you think, well, what can I do? And the answer is bloody well, get your act together, because here it comes, boys and girls, and you better be prepared. You know, and also, not just for your own sake, but for the sake of everyone. What did Dostoevsky say? Everyone is responsible not only for what they do, but for what everyone else does. And that's an insane thing to say, but Dostoevsky was an insane genius, and with heavy emphasis on the genius. And it's very weird to understand that the world might be constituted so that everything that you do matters so much that it also affects everything everyone else does, but that is how the world's constituted, and that's a hell of a burden to take on, and a very frightening realization. You know, it's enough to make you psychotic if it comes upon you unawares. You know, people who become manic, they get some sense of the potential of their reach, but it comes upon them involuntarily and it just destroys them. They're too close to God. That's a good way of thinking about it. They've flown too close to the sun. Sun's still there and you need it. You can definitely fly too close to it, but you're still stuck with the responsibility. And that's a very daunting thought. So I'm going to tell you what's going to happen next. This is going to happen this year. So get ready. Okay, so now we have an AI model that can extract a model of the world from the entire corpus of language. All right, and it's smarter than you, and it's going to be a hell of a lot smarter than you in 2 years. So you can get ready for that too. But it's not that smart yet because it's just a humanities professor at the moment. It doesn't test its linguistic knowledge against the real world. That's what a scientist does, right? You come up with a theory that's linguistically predicated, and then you throw it against the world and see if it sticks. And then the world tells you whether or not your linguistic construction is valid. But the new AI systems will be able to extract out patterns from the world itself, from images and so forth, and then be able to test their linguistic constructions against the world, and so they'll practice just like scientists. And the most advanced models are going to use text and image and action as well, because they'll be able to model human action. And so, and all of that's going to come down the pipes within the next year. So hang on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen, because what did my friend Jonathan Pajot say? Giants are going to walk the earth once more, and we're going to live through that, maybe. So anyways, well, we'll see. I mean, Elon Musk, one of the things he's working on, he thinks that the world will be controlled by whoever produces the most functional AI system the fastest, because there'll be a first mover advantage. And one of the things Musk has been working on for a long time are distributed AI systems, so that you'll have your own artificial intelligence to protect you against, well, let's say against Google's artificial intelligence, for starters. Yeah, or the CCP's artificial intelligence, because you can bet your hat they're working on that about as fast as they possibly can. Science behind understanding, tuning language models to an individual's contextual experience, the human bandwidth limitation, localized and private AI, and ultimately where all of this insane progress on the technological front might be heading. My brother-in-law, Jim Keller, is a very well-known chip designer, and he's building a chip optimized for AI learning. And we've talked a fair bit about that, and I've talked to him on my YouTube channel about the perils and promises of AI, let's say. And then I've been very fascinated by ChatGPT. I know I'm not alone in that. I've been using it most recently as a digital assistant, and I got a couple of questions to ask you about that. So here's some of the things that I've found out about ChatGPT, and maybe we can go into the technology a little bit too. So I can ask it very complicated questions. Like I asked it the other day about, there's this old papyrus from Egypt, ancient Egypt, that details out a particular variant of the story of Horus and Osiris, two Egyptian gods. It's a very obscure piece of knowledge, and it has to do with the sexual element of a battle between two of the Egyptian gods. And I asked it about that and to find the appropriate citations and quotes from appropriate experts. And it did so very rapidly, but then it moralized at me about the sexual element of the story and told me that maybe it was in conflict with their community guidelines. And so then I gave it hell. I told it to stop moralizing at me and that I just wanted academic answers. And it apologized and then seemed to do less of that, although it had to be reminded from time to time. So that's very weird that you can argue with it, let's say, and that it'll apologize. It also does quite frequently produce references that don't exist. Like about 85% of the time, 90% of the time, the references it provides are genuine. I always look them up and double check what it provides. But now and then it'll just invent something completely out of the blue and offer it as actual article. And I don't understand that at all. It's like, especially because when you point it out, it again apologizes and then provides the accurate reference. It's like, so how
I don't understand how to account for the behavior of the system that's doing that.
These are going to be very powerful tools for you to go into these AI systems and get anything literally that you want from them, because you're going to be with a scalpel creating these questions layer upon layer until you finally get down to the atom.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's exactly what I found with ChatGPT. I mean, I've been using it quite extensively over the last month. I have it open. I use 4 search engines. I use Google, I use ChatGPT, and I use Bible Hub, which is a compendium of multiple translations of the biblical corpus. I'm doing that because I'm working on a biblically oriented book at the moment. Now there's another, oh yes, and I use the University of Toronto library system that gives me access to, you know, all the scientific and humanities journals. Yeah, so it's an amazing amalgam of research possibility, but having that allied with the ChatGPT system essentially gives me a team of PhD level researchers who are experts in every domain to answer any question I can possibly come up with, and then to refer me to the proper literature. It's absolutely stunning.
And potentially force creativity in their interactions to a level that you may not have gotten out of a PhD student because they are in fear of going over the precipice. Because
they're also bounded. You know, I mean, one of the things I've noticed about great thinkers is that one of the things that characterizes a great thinker, apart from, let's say, immense innate general cognitive ability, and then a tremendous amount of persistent discipline and curiosity, so those are the temperamental prerequisites, is that truly original people frequently have knowledge in 2 usually non-juxtaposed domains. So like one of the most creative people I know, deepest people I know at the moment, Jonathan Pageau, he's a Greek Orthodox icon carver. He was trained in postmodern philosophy, and he has a deep knowledge of Orthodox Christianity. Well, there's like one guy like him, right? He's the only person who operates at the intersection of those 3 specialized subdisciplines. And so he can take the spirit of each of those disciplines and engage those spirits in an internal conversation, which is very much analogous to what the AI systems are doing when they're calculating these mathematical relationships. And he can derive insights and patterns that no one else can derive because they're not juxtaposing those particular patterns. Now, ChatGPT, it has specialized knowledge in every domain that's encapsulated in the linguistic corpus. And so it can produce incredible insights on all sorts of fronts, as you said, if you ask it the right questions.